forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.
I don't feel like it. Have you ever caught yourself thinking that? I don't feel like it, which probably stems from the thought, I don't want to, therefore I don't feel like it. Or maybe you've heard your kids say, I don't feel like it, I don't want to. And if we're being honest, as adults, we should admit to ourselves we've probably said that all too often. Maybe it's when it comes to getting into that exercise routine, or starting to eat healthy, or do a task that may be difficult and we just think, I don't feel like it. And those 5 words can stop us cold. Welcome to the Mindset Mastery Podcast, where faith and entrepreneurship intersect and we build a mindset so we can begin to master the most basic foundations of our life within our faith, marriage, our families, and our business. And I am so excited about today's episode because it is why I titled this, I Don't Feel Like It, because it's just a part of life. And feelings are an interesting thing because we have them. We need to realize it, not ignore them, but also not let them dictate how we move forward. So that's why I'm going to be breaking this down. And you know what? Why I don't feel like it often derails us. You know, Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. The famous quote, right? And he nails it because feelings often become self-fulfilling prophecies. What does that mean? It means if I'm speaking a certain way based upon how I feel, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing I'm saying, it's just likely to then happen. It's more or less going to be the direction in which I begin to move because it's how I'm speaking based upon how I feel. In our mind and body, when we say, if you don't feel like tackling a task, your mind and body find 1,000 reasons to avoid it. Yet scripture reminds us something different. It says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties and see if there is any wicked way in me and lead me in the way of everlasting. That's Psalms 139, 23 through 24. If you're wanting to know where that comes from, but it's just saying, hey, I feel a certain way. God, would you search me in that and let me know what my heart is doing and why? And try me or test me and know my anxiousness, know my worry, know my doubt, know whatever it is, and see if it's attached to something that is, he uses the word wicked and way in me. Like, wicked is intense. But anything that is not of him, would he show me what it is so I can then move forward? And it says, and lead me in the way everlasting. If you're a faith-filled person, you identify with the expression everlasting life, or the idea of who doesn't want everlasting energy? Who doesn't want everlasting, you name it. Lead me in the way everlasting to be able to endure and continue to move forward. But before we bury ourselves, right, in excuses, let's take a breath. Because motivation may wane, and realistically, it will wane or fade, could be another word. But purpose endures. And that's the thing. The everlasting comes from this being rooted in purpose. And we'll break it down. And so I want to break down 3 different things today. I want to give you the FEEL framework. I want to give you a unbelievable yet funny and miserable in the moment story while being in Marine Corps boot camp. And I want to give you the secret hack that will help remove every excuse. So get comfortable, okay? Grab a notebook, hit record on your voice memo, okay? And let's jump into this. I want to give you first the FEEL framework. Whenever motivation fades, apply these 4 steps, okay? Face your feelings, the F. The first E is embrace the Y. The second E is empower through action. And the L is leap into growth, right? Face your feelings. How do we do that? You stop, you name it, you identify it, you don't shove it in a hole and ignore it. No, call it out. whether you feel apathy, dread, fatigue, or just meh, clarity begins with acknowledgement. Don't brush it off. Own it. Because all too often we've kind of been taught, maybe at times in our life or in culture, right? Or here's a silly expression we say, that pain is weakness leaving the body. No, it's not. It's pain, right? It doesn't mean that we don't have to go through it and we have to learn to endure it, but it's pain. It's not weakness leaving the body. It's pain. So if you feel pain, identify it, but just don't let it determine how you move forward. I love what Zig Ziglar says. He says, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does breathing. That's why we recommend it daily. Zig Ziglar. It's funny to think that, yeah, we need to do things on a regular basis. We need to breathe. And just like motivation, right, we need to continue to breathe in purpose, because motivation will fade. And purpose is like breathing. We need to have purpose and stand on that every day. In 1 Peter, it says, cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. I'm not going to try to do this on my own, right? When we can face our feelings, right, you can give them a name. And once you can name them, they lose power to derail us, because it's not like, oh my God, what's going on? Or I don't know. I just feel, right? We say that. I don't know what's going on. I just feel, insert whatever it may be that you feel. I just feel, okay, hold on. Ask, why do I feel that? Okay, which is why the E in feel is embrace the why. Ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Okay, connect with the deeper purpose or the original vision of something. Like, why am I feeling this way? Well, because it's attached to something that's rooted in purpose. Okay, maybe you're tired of the grind. Maybe you're doubting your calling, or life circumstances have you, clouded. You're just not finding clarity any longer because of life circumstance, possibly. Well, here's what the truth tells us in Proverbs. It says, commit your work to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. I don't want my thoughts to determine where I'm going in life. I want to commit the work I'm doing to God so that I can have well-established thoughts that come from him. And so write down your why. If your work is for God's glory, or you're doing something for a greater purpose than yourself, and of course that includes your family's future, or to leave a legacy, and to remind yourself of that specific mission you're going after, absolutely. But in a broader sense, the why is wrapped to this idea of, if my work is to glorify and honor God, I probably should get his ways of thinking, so that way I don't fall into how I feel about my own thoughts. Okay, the second E is then when we have his thoughts that establish us, because we are identifying the why and the purpose of how we feel about something, we can then become the second E, which is empowered through action, right? Because if you're feeling stuck, right, just take one small step, a non-negotiable one, meaning it doesn't matter if it's successful or if it fails or if it's the best one you could have taken. It's that you just take one, right? Even if you're going to sprint for 5 minutes, hey, that's awesome. Instead of thinking, well, if I'm going to sprint, I got to sprint a marathon. No, just a single step. Hey, send that email, send that text, make that offer, whatever it may be, okay, to take a step. Tony Robbins says that action is the foundational key to all success, right? The word tells us that faith without works is dead. I've talked about this before. So it's why action is the foundational key to all success, because faith without works or action is dead, right? It's saying that if faith by itself, okay, if it does not have works, is dead. So faith, great. Action leads to success, even better. Otherwise, it's just dead. I can have all the faith, all the belief, all of the motivation, all of the feelings. I can even acknowledge it, embrace the why, and still not take action. So empower yourself through taking action, no matter how big or small that step is. And lastly is L and feel, leap into growth. Trust that that motion precedes motivation. Trust that motion precedes motivation, right? Because as you move, your feelings will catch up, right? If I just sit in my feelings and do nothing, I'm just going to stay there and probably sulk maybe in your feelings. And nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to be able to move forward. It doesn't mean you're ignoring your feelings. It means that you're identifying, acknowledging, and then discovering why you're having that feeling so you can then actually begin to empower yourself to move forward so you can actually leap into the growth that you desire, right? Philippians 4:13, a very common scripture reference that many people know is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? Getting God's thoughts, having him examine our heart, having him tell us why we're feeling a certain way is going to establish our thoughts so we can move forward in action and have the growth we want. Momentum builds confidence. Hey, every tiny victory is going to bring clarity and joy back into the journey because this is a journey, right? And why I'm going to share this next story, it's so important is because it's going to wrap us into what I'll land the plane with, which is the hack. Okay, the secret hack that will help remove excuses or lead us down that path of I don't feel like it because my feelings are dictating whether I do or I don't do something. You know, back in the Marine Corps, so I was in basic training in 2001. And, you know, one of the things I'm going to not give you all of the background for time's sake, but essentially a mistake was made and I had to incur the punishment even though I didn't make the mistake to prove a greater point about teamwork and how when we make mistakes and how they have a greater impact on not just us, but the people around us too. And so long story short, back in the Marine Corps boot camp, you know, arguably the ultimate motivation killer, you know, was having to do deck towel races is what we called it. So imagine yourself, you're bent in a down dog position, which is hands on the floor, your knees are essentially locked out and your feet are on the floor, right? So you're kind of like a pyramid, you know, style position, if you can imagine that. And you are cleaning the floor with a wet towel full of, you know, a solution we use to clean the floors. So it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone. And my punishment was every hour on the hour for 8 hours for the time we had to sleep. I had to get up and do these deck towel races. And they had figured out that on average, it would take a Marine recruit the whole hour, essentially, a good 40 to 45 minutes to do this. So by the time I would go down, right, I would turn around and I'd keep doing that the whole length of the area in which we slept. And it took me roughly 40 to 45 minutes. So I would lay back down in my bed for 10 minutes, you know, to 15 minutes to essentially be woken back up to have to repeat the process. Now, here's the thing. My body, my mindset, everything in me did not feel like it. I was mad. I felt angry, betrayed. I felt pain. I felt muscle fatigue. I felt sleep deprivation. I felt a lot of things. And I didn't ignore them because I didn't know how, but I certainly felt them. But what I learned was one secret hack that removed every excuse that ran through my head every hour on the hour that somehow propelled me to keep moving forward each hour to do deck towel races. Here's what it was. The truth of it was every hour on the hour, the drill instructor that was in the area in which we slept was in a separate office and he would pull the blinds down and I would see him look out that office window. He would make sure that I saw him and he would make sure I was doing the deck towel races and that I was being woken up every hour on the hour and that I was doing it for the entire space on the floor that had to be cleaned. And when I was done, he saw I completed it. He watched me lay down And every on the hour, he'd open the blinds again, which means he was getting up too, or just not sleeping. I don't know. But here's what I learned. The secret hack is this. It is accountability. See, I was being held accountable. I wasn't just being woken up. It's that I had a drill instructor looking out the window every single time. And that accountability removed every excuse, not that they didn't run through my mind, but it removed every excuse I had to decide whether I was or I wasn't going to do those deck towel races. I simply knew I was going to do it because someone was watching. This truth tells us that in Proverbs 27, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Now, this gets misunderstood often, but I want you to imagine as to iron sharpening iron is the idea of a man sharpens the countenance. It is to imagine a good friend of yours, or even if you have kids, imagine one of your kids being bummed out and their head is hanging low. They feel defeated. They feel maybe unworthy. They feel like they've screwed up so bad. They feel a lot of things, right? And you bend down and you cup your hand up underneath their chin and you lift their head up as to say, hey, you got this. You can do this. I believe in you. And that's, in a weird way, in a less than desirable way, to be honest, I realized that's what that drill instructor was doing. Now, he wasn't literally cupping my head and picking it up and saying, hey, I believe in you. But in a way, every time he peered through those blinds, he was looking to make sure I was doing it. But I think also at the same time, he was saying, hey, you got this. Keep going. You can do it. And now, did he actually say that? No, but it speaks to it this way because accountability goes such a long ways. When we are accountable to God, when we are accountable to a spouse, when we are accountable to a coach, a coworker, whoever it may be, get accountability, because that's going to help you go from those moments of, I don't feel like it, to implementing the FEEL framework, right? The idea of, facing the feeling, acknowledging it, essentially, embracing the why, right? Understanding why you would fight through that feeling, to identify it so you can then empower yourself to take action and then grow from there, right? It's accountability that allows us to really move forward, amongst other things, but accountability is key, and it is the hack to being and doing the things when we don't feel like it. If I don't tell anybody about my goals or what I'm doing, nobody's going to ask. Therefore, if I don't feel like it, they don't know whether I did or didn't feel like it, and because there's just no accountability. So, today, choose your task, right? The one thing that you keep saying, I don't feel like it, but you should be doing it, okay? Second, get an accountability person, right? It could be a spouse or a coach, a friend, mentor. Find someone that you can have hold you accountable healthily, right? Let them know. Thirdly, tell them what you're doing and set up a specific check-in cadence, right? It could be daily, weekly, monthly. I don't know. I suggest that if not daily, minimum weekly, okay? And you know what? All of a sudden, the I don't feel like it becomes I can't not do it because now so-and-so knows. And I understand it's not whether you get it all done or not. It's that you're taking the steps, right? You're putting something into action at least to move towards it, to get closer, and no longer letting how you feel dictate how you move forward, right? So let's kind of put this all together, and then I'm going to land the plane for us. But the idea is, one, face your feelings, name the barrier, figure out what it is that's keeping you from moving forward, and then embrace it, right? Be like, okay, here's what it is. And now I know why I'm having that feeling, because when you figure that out, it's going to reignite your purpose. And when your purpose is reignited, it's a lot easier to take that one step, right? To be empowered through action. And then when we're empowered through action, we can create some momentum, which then allows us to leap into growth. We actually grow, and we stay on that cycle best because we've built in some accountability by sharing our plan, the purpose and the why, and someone who we can say, hey, I'm doing this, check in with me. C.S. Lewis says this: you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Okay, so it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter where you're at in the journey. It doesn't matter if you're young or old. It's just take time to dream again, to set another goal, to keep moving and not let feelings dictate. Not to ignore feelings, just to not let them be the thing that causes you to move or not move. Okay, so ask yourself these questions maybe. What is it that I'm avoiding because you don't feel like it? And why does it matter, right? Dig into the purpose deeper. And then, you know what? Commit, even within the next hour or two of hearing this podcast, take one small step and figure out who's going to hold you accountable to it. Because building mindset mastery requires us to acknowledge our feelings. It's why we have them. However, our feelings aren't there so we can then make decisions. They're there so we can ask why, and then commit our work to the Lord so that our thoughts will be established in such a way that we can actually recapture the why and the purpose for what we're doing so we can move forward and do all of our work as unto God. I encourage you, and I want to remind you that your feelings don't have to dictate your destiny. I want to encourage you that you have the courage to face your doubts. You have the wisdom to embrace your purpose and the strength to take action, even when you don't feel like it. And I pray that you find some incredible accountability beyond this podcast today. Someone you can specifically lean on and into. Someone who's going to genuinely be someone who is like iron sharpening iron in such a way that they lift your countenance to keep and help you get to where you want to go. You guys, I appreciate you tuning in today to the Mindset Mastery Podcast. Before I sign off, I want to do a couple of things. One, I want to say welcome and thank you for listening. If you are new, and if you've been tuning in, hey, and you've yet to leave a review, please do that. It helps me expand my reach. And the truth is, guys, I don't know where this is going necessarily. This is a step of obedience for me. And I want to provide this because I think it does add value, even if it's to one person. And so, hey, leave me a review. Let me know what you think. And as always, hey, I send out a weekly Mindset Mastery email every Monday to your inbox for free. If you've yet to sign up for that, sign up for it. And if you would like to connect, because I offer a coaching and mentorship program, if you are like, you know what, I'm ready to actually turn my purpose into profit. I'm ready to go after all that God has for me. And you want to do it, but you don't want to compromise the things that matter most to you. I get it. That's exactly why I offer the coaching program and mentorship that I do. If you'd like to connect for a free coaching call, go ahead and sign up for that below as well. All of that is in the show note links. And as always, you guys, again, I'm your host, Sam Velasquez with the Mindset Mastery Podcast, and we will see you on the other side. Peace.
God forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.